Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second event in the Family Focus series this spring. We hope you can join us throughout the spring to meet members of our faculty and staff who are here to support you and your students. My name is Erin McNabb. I'm an Associate Director in the Office of Alumni and Parent Relations and proud member of the class of 2006. I thank you for attending today's event. This talk is being recorded and will be shared on the Family Focus website next week. Please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can after the presentations. We'll also try to send helpful links throughout the event using the chat feature. So now to briefly introduce the topic. The Office of Career Services, or OCS, prepares and empowers every student and alum to realize their full potential and help them feel prepared to cultivate a lifetime of opportunity and to create a positive impact on society. And our summer research program at HMC engages students in full-time research each summer, where students pursue research projects alongside faculty members across nearly every department in the college. So to start us off, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Natasha.
Hey, thanks so much, Erin. I'm going to share my screen, pull up my presentation. Okay, thank you. Great. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Natasha Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a career advisor and educator in the Office of Career Services. Little overview of what I'll be talking about today. I'm just going to generally introduce OCS and our services and various resources that we offer. And then I'll be sharing some of our 2022 senior outcomes data, which comes from our senior survey, which we send to the graduating class every year, asking what their post-grad plans are. And then I'll be closing with talking a little bit, giving some tips around supporting your student in their professional development. So a little brief introduction to OCS. Erin already shared our mission statement, so I won't reread that. But several of the ways that we try to accomplish this mission, one is through advising appointments that we do one-on-one. I host many appointments throughout the weeks to talk about resumes, cover letters, practice interviewing, talk about how to search for jobs and internships and research opportunities. So that's a big piece of what we do. We also have very extensive resources online, which I'll be getting into a little more later, as well as hosting educational workshops that we ourselves might lead, or we might invite a guest speaker who has expertise in a certain topic to talk about that topic. We also host large career fairs every year, about 2 each semester, and I'll share some data that we have on those. And then we also do workshops and info sessions with employers that might come to campus or host a virtual session to talk about their company, opportunities they might have, or lead a sort of educational skill building workshop. Great. Okay, so to get a little bit into advising, I wanted to share the common types of appointments that we offer. So we do introduction to career services appointments, especially largely for first-year students or students that just haven't interacted with us yet and just want to get to know us a little better, as well as doing reviews for resumes and cover letters, preparing for interviews, practicing behavioral and technical interviews, and many other topics listed here. And to share some data of the appointments that we've had since August 29, so the beginning of this academic year, we've had definitely by far resumes are our most common appointment type, followed by job and internship searching, cover letters, those intro to career services appointments, and these other appointments as well. And we do get the other types of appointments just in smaller numbers, but these are our most important ones. Or not most important, but most common. Okay, and then we're very proud of this number, 438 appointments so far since the beginning of the school year. So we're looking forward to that just growing and connecting with more students. Okay, speaking of students, we do have several student assistants helping us out in OCS. So just this academic year, we hired for the first time 2 social media student workers. And they create a lot of content for Instagram, making sure that's up to date, creating videos and polls and things like that. So we're very happy to have them kind of promote our services and just have students kind of interact with us more on social media. And then in the bottom row, we have our peer consultants. And these are students that we've trained to do some like advising appointments. So they can help students with resumes and cover letters. We do a lot of kind of resume review drop-in events, especially before career fairs and larger events. So they're always helping out with that. As well as Niall and Eric, who are both CS math majors. They help us out with our technical appointments so they can run through mock interviews with our students. And to share about another resource that we offer, a Handshake is one of our main online hubs where a lot of our services and resources are housed. So it's broadly just a common career services management system. It's used by colleges and universities across the US. And it's a place where students can schedule appointments with us, see our appointment availability. They can look through our resource library, as well as find events that they might be interested in. And our Handshake platform is accessible by students from all of the 7 Cs. So they can see events that are hosted at other campuses as well. And they know that they're always welcome to attend those, especially if maybe it's about a topic or a certain type of industry or career path that's maybe not as common for Mutters to pursue, but is more common for students from other colleges to pursue. They can always attend those as well. And then finally, a big thing on Handshake is that it is also a job board. So students can find jobs, internships, fellowships, on-campus employment. They might even find volunteer opportunities. So it's a great place that they should definitely be familiar with. And it's definitely something that we emphasize a lot and use a lot in appointments and in our events. Okay, speaking of events, I wanted to share a little bit about workshops that we run. We're very, very happy to be doing a lot of these in person now this year. Our events have been, this past fall semester, have been going very, very well. Often have more attendees than we're expecting at them, which is a great problem to have. And one kind of new programming series that we've started, Grub Club, that kind of yellowish square here. One of our advisors created a weekly programming series for students where they just kind of join each other in the Hawk, which is our dining hall over lunch, and talk about different professional development and career-related topics. And that was happening almost every week of fall semester and will be happening in spring semester as well. Okay, another kind of group and resource that we love to access in OCS is our alumni network. So we often might invite alumni to lead an event if they're interested in talking about a topic, or we might invite them to resume review events so they can look at students' resumes and give them feedback. And then in the bottom right corner, this photo, one of the folks here is an alum who works at George Fisher. And they took our Summer Institute students, that's all the students there from Summer Institute, and gave them a tour of the kind of not factory, but of inside the company, and set us up with various employees that students were able to talk to and ask a lot of questions of. So we're so grateful for all of our relationships with alumni, and especially when they're willing to kind of give back to current students. Okay, and then a little bit about some other events that we do, our big career fairs and industry nights. So again, typically we hold 2 kind of larger career fairs per semester. In fall, those were our software, data science, and finance fair in September, and then a more general kind of fall STEM fair in October. And coming up very soon, on February 8th, we'll be hosting another fair that is, again, kind of more broadly all STEM industries. And all the big fairs, at least recently, have been virtual, and this upcoming one in February will be also. But we're also trying out something new this year with these industry nights. These are going to be in-person, smaller type events, capping it around 10 employers, where at large career fairs, we might get like 50, 60 plus employers. So for industry nights, we're keeping it a lot smaller. We're doing it in person. And having a focus be more about just kind of building relationships and like talking for longer periods of time than they might actually get to in a career fair, to really like develop more personal and kind of intimate relationships with the employers that are there. So we're very excited. We're kind of trying it out for the first time this year. So we're all very excited to see how it goes. And then besides that, throughout the fall and spring, we also engage employers through information sessions and events that they might lead, like tech talks or panels. We have coming up, Jane Street is doing an estimathon. So we're all looking forward to all of these employer events. And we always highly encourage our students to go and have that direct kind of FaceTime with an employer. Okay, and just a little more about our career fairs. In recent years, we've been partnering with Caltech on all of our larger fairs. In this past one in September, we had about 58 employers attend. The one in October had 78. And then our upcoming one is still to be determined. Registration is still open. So if you happen to be working for a company that might be interested in recruiting MED students, you can let me know. I can share my contact information, and I'd love to get you connected and send you that information. Great. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a bit about our class of 2022 senior outcomes. And for this most recent graduating class, about 70-ish% went on to employment, about 20% to grad school, and then the rest kind of various other opportunities. And of those going on to work for industry, about 85% had already accepted a position by the time they completed the survey, which was toward the very end of spring semester. About 15% were still seeking opportunities. And we actually met with some of those students like over the summer to kind of help them get connected and make sure they had what they needed, because we do offer all of our services to alumni as well. So they can always reach out back to us if they want to schedule an appointment or talk about something. So that's a service we're very happy to offer. And then something else we're very proud of is for the students that applied to grad school, 100% of them were accepted to a program, and we're planning on going to attend that program after graduation. And for the students that went to work in industry, the top employers were Meta, actually quite a few letters went on to work for Meta last year, Microsoft, very common, and then Caltech also. And the criteria that students identified as being the most important to them when they were choosing an employer, number 1 was work-life balance, number 2, starting salary, and 3, geographic location. This is actually a little different than what we've seen in past years. There was a value of, I think it was like intellectually challenging work was kind of always in the top 3 in the past few years, but has kind of shifted a little bit now. And you can see these lists of companies. We have really big names: Amazon, Apple, SpaceX, Nike. So really, really great, well-known employers that our students are going off to. And same for graduate school. We have some very selective, great universities here that our students go on to. Lots of representation at the UCs, as well as these other schools here. And of those students going on to graduate school, almost 70% went straight into PhD programs, a little less going into master's programs, some going into kind of combination master's and PhD programs. And even this may be just 1 or 2 students, but going on to an MD PhD program. The top schools: Stanford, UC Berkeley, UCLA, Cornell, UCI, UC San Diego. And then the top field of study: CS, physics, applied math, applied physics, communications, and mathematics. Okay, now to jump into a little bit of information around supporting your student in their professional development. So we talk a lot, of course, with our students and appointments about what employers are looking for, and kind of wanted to share some of this information with you too. I want to say, kind of preface this, a student does not need to do all of these things in order to find employment or go to grad school after college. These are just good activities that they can choose to engage with. So internships, also, of course, are great things that employers are going to be looking for. Some of that kind of tangible experience working with a company. Research experience, of course, especially important for students that want to apply to grad school. Different sorts of projects that they might be doing inside or outside of their classes that are helping them build, especially like technical skills that employers might be looking for, as well as campus involvement, leadership roles, so that they're developing those kind of softer skills and more interpersonal skills as well. Studying abroad might be something that employers value. Definitely volunteer experiences, part-time or campus work. And again, as I mentioned before, different kinds of skills, technical ones, of course, that are related to the job and industry that they're looking to get into, as well as these softer skills like communication, ability to learn, leadership, adaptability, initiative, all these kinds of things. And thinking about what students do after their first year to kind of start working on their career development and skill development. In the class of 2021, about 25-ish% of students went on to summer math compared to around 30% of this more recent class. And really with these numbers, kind of the point that I want to share is that sometimes students come in with the impression like if they want an industry job after graduation, they like have to do an internship every summer. This is definitely not the case. These numbers kind of show that students after their first year engage with a variety of opportunities, and they are still, going to be employable and going to be doing something good. So there's not many things that are like absolutely necessary for a student to do in order to get employed, as long as they are, again, developing the skills that they need in whatever jobs they're interested in. Okay, so thinking of other kind of professional development things or kind of self-care things, we wanted to share some ideas that students can do over the summer or during breaks. We cannot say enough how important rest is, and students, we know that the academic year is like very rigorous. They're always very busy throughout the year. So genuinely, like we very strongly encourage students to get rest during breaks, to come back to school and, their future endeavors with just more energy, and readiness to jump into work again. Volunteering is always great. Writing, kind of reflecting, processing the things that they're happening, experiences they're having, doing informational interviews. So possibly reaching out to alumni or people that are working for companies or in certain jobs that a student might be interested in, and just connecting with them, having a conversation, just asking them questions about what their day-to-day might be like, if they have any advice for the student. So that's always something valuable to do throughout the year, really, as well as job shadowing, different like part-time or temporary jobs that might help them develop career-related skills. They might do their own projects just to develop skills and get more experience with something, as well as they might look for projects within companies, or other ways that they might just level up their skills, maybe by taking a class or spending time on YouTube while watching instructional videos that might take very different forms, but these are all really great things that students might consider doing over their breaks. Okay, now a little bit about connecting with and supporting your student. We, of course, just recommendations, but we recommend that you talk openly with your student about their plans. Definitely you can discuss decisions with them, but of course, allowing your student to make the decisions for themselves. Emphasizing the importance of using their time wisely, but again, kind of remembering that like rest and re-energizing and rejuvenating practices are also a very wise use of time. Encouraging extracurricular involvement that helps develop their leadership skills and other softer and more interpersonal skills. Being patient and supportive, of course. And then we also love if you suggest that they visit us so we can get them connected with them, kind of know what they're looking for. And when we hear about opportunities that we know specific students might be interested in, we definitely kind of can pass those along. So we'd love if you could encourage them to see us. And then just in case you yourself were ever wondering how you might support the Office of Career Services, we love when family members or MUD community members introduce us to your organization or company's recruiter, so we can invite them to our fairs and get them introduced to our students. You might be interested in sharing your expertise, leading a workshop or giving a presentation or being on a Q&A or something to share your knowledge about different fields. You might also be interested in conducting a mock technical or case interviews. Our students are always looking for advice and feedback from people that are in the industry, kind of doing the sort of jobs that they're interested in. You might also host an intern or an extern, or a site visit if you're open to students just coming and seeing where you work, or listening to people that you're working with, learning about how a company works kind of from the inside. Those are things that we'd be super happy to kind of work with you to coordinate. So definitely reach out to us if you're interested in any of these things. And you can reach out to us at our various kind of contact methods. Email is definitely the best way I would recommend to get in contact with us. And we also have various social media that you can see here. If you ever wanted to follow us just to see when we share about upcoming events or information, resources, tips. So yeah, definitely give us a follow or reach out if you want to talk more. And that is all I have. Thank you so much. And I look forward to answering your questions a little later.
Take it away, Kathy.
Okay, thank you so much, Natasha. Natasha does wonderful work with our students as they are looking for internships and opportunities outside of MUD. And so I'm just going to share my screen, and Erin, you're seeing looking good? Great. Okay, so I'm Katherine Van Heuvelen. I am a professor in our chemistry department. This is my 11th year at Harvey-Mudd, and I'm also serving right now as Associate Dean of Faculty. And one of the jobs that I have in this role is organizing and supporting our summer research program, which is a wonderful experience for faculty and students alike. So what do students do during summer research? This is something that was new to me when I was starting my own undergrad, but summer research is a 10-week period housed at Harvey-Mudd where students explore some kind of important open-ended research question alongside their peers and in collaboration with a professor at Mudd. Typically, the students are working 40 hours a week. The dates, the start and end dates will vary by the department and the professor. And typically holidays are Memorial Day, Juneteenth, and July 4. Our pay rate, we've gone up in the last couple years. When I started this job a couple years back, we were paying $5,000 for the summer. We're up to $6,200 or $620 a week. Clearly, we want to keep growing to make this an exciting opportunity for students, but we're heading in the right direction. And students live in the Claremont area. Many students live on campus in the dorms, and some students find off-campus housing. One thing that we're still working on, I want to note that this $6,200 does not include housing as well. Students typically are paying to live in the dorms. There are some exceptions to that, and especially where we try hard to connect students with demonstrated financial need with support to live in the dorms in the summer. And students are able to apply for that assistance. Okay. So who can participate? Anyone and everyone. Students in all disciplines, all majors, all class years, and across the consortium can apply and participate in these summer research positions. I have hired lots of first-year students. They've just finished their first year. They're rising sophomores, and they have made wonderful contributions to my lab. Even though my field, inorganic chemistry, is one that students do not usually encounter till later in their college career, our first-year students are very capable, very smart. They can be great research students. So that is to say, if your student is talking to you and they're not sure if they should apply because they're just starting out, that's not a limiting factor. You can still encourage them to try and apply for a position. So what exactly do you do during summer research? There's a host of things that we do during the day, and I'll go through several examples. So what do you do all day? You're learning from your professors and your peers. Harvey-Mudd is an incredibly collaborative school. Summer research is even more so. You're working on a team with other students, and you're working really closely with your professor. Your professor is typically there on campus for a lot of the summer, working with you and meeting with you. So you're learning together. You're going to lab meetings where you're learning how to engage in a scholarly conversation, again, with an expert professor there and with other students. You learn how to read the scientific literature, which is its own genre, and every discipline has its own vocabulary that you learn as you go. And I know with my students, we break down how to read a paper, what to look for, where to focus when you don't have to focus on a certain section. Theoretical derivations. So we have faculty who are doing theory. So for example, in physics, Brian Chouvet is a theoretical physicist who's a leader in the field of dark matter doing really exciting work. We have mathematicians who are doing a lot of theory, some CS profs in that area. And we also have faculty who are experimentalists, where the students are in the lab running reactions or setting up experiments with optics or working in biology. There's a whole host of kind of experiments that can go on in the summer. And some faculty do quite a bit of field work. So this is, I believe, Katie Erickson, who's a mudder who worked with Professor Kathy McFadden in biology studying coral reefs. And they would go scuba diving to collect their samples. We have a lot of engineers, and there is a lot of design in summer research. Design might be your entire project. You might be building an instrument or a machine, or as part of a different kind of project, you might be designing whatever it is you need to conduct your experiment. And so students will often work in the makerspace or in the shops. And similarly, design and then you build. We have shop proctors, we have machine shops. So students do quite a bit of building during the summer as well. Travel. There are some professors whose work involves travel. So my colleague, Professor Lilia Hawkins, is an atmospheric chemist, and she has had a multi-year collaboration to use a cloud chamber in Paris, France. And so has taken a few students every summer to run experiments and collect data. This past year in Paris, they were comparing air quality in the city as well as out in the forest, looking at the volatile organic compounds emitted by the vegetation there. And then with having done all this work, we share it by writing papers or conference proceedings, which again, just like reading the literature is its own genre, so is writing the literature. But many professors will write in collaboration with their students, and the student will have authorship then on the publication, which is a really nice thing to have on your record if your student is vectored towards graduate school and industry as well. But this shows that the student has made a major contribution to a project. We also give presentations. So in lab meetings, students will present their work orally, and we have a college-wide poster session every September for all the students who participated in research over the summer, whether at MUD or at a different institution. This past September, we were back in person for the first time in years, which was a delight. There was so much energy, so much enthusiasm for each other's research, and seeing how much students had learned was really quite remarkable. Faculty also take students to conferences, and it's very normal for a MUD student at a conference to be presenting their work to other scientists, engineers, or mathematicians. And at the end of the conversation, the visitor will ask our student, oh, so when do you finish your PhD? Because our students are doing that level of work, that level of presentation. And also, just to reassure any students who might be on the call, we don't expect this of you coming in on day one. Like, these are skills we built together about how to present your work and talk about it to a variety of audiences. Some students also work on course design over the summer. So we have a lot of professors who are very interested in pedagogical research, and students can be partners in that as well. This past summer, the chemistry department overhauled our course in our laboratory, and a team of 3 students did phenomenal work on the lab manual and really improving the laboratory experience for students. So if you have a student interested in education, this is a great opportunity. And we have a lot of fun too along the way. There are social events, there are seminars, there are lab tours, baking competitions. It's a nice time for students to build community and have some space in their lives for social events. The academic year is very intense, but in the summer, there's a little extra leeway to lean into the social side. And along that same lines, you're joining a community. It's a community of mudders in your lab, in your department, and across the college. And you're also becoming part of a larger scholarly community, which is a really exciting step for our students to take. And this is also a great time to build a relationship with a mentor, with a faculty member. I have had wonderful professional relationships with the students in my lab. And just this past semester, one of my students pictured here, Susie Kim, sent me an email and said, can you come to attend this Zoom meeting where I'm defending my PhD in Stanford, as she was finishing up in environmental engineering. And so these are relationships that can be ongoing, and it's a great way to really get to know students. I would also say one thing I try to talk about a lot with our students is that it's great to have one mentor who can really support you, but having a network of mentors is a great way to go. And summer is a time when you get to know the prof who's leading your project, but there's other profs around and you can knock on their door and ask them questions and get to know them too, because different profs have different skill sets. We have our own different networks and can really help your students as they're going along and discovering their own paths. And so in terms of what a student will gain in summer research, it's quite a bit. Disciplinary knowledge and skills, technical skills to be sure, problem-solving skills, communication, and leadership. Being part of a lab group is a great opportunity to learn how to manage a project and lead a project, especially if a student returns to a lab for multiple summers or semesters. Students can gain networking experience and some experience that can be an advantage when they're looking for applying to graduate school or looking for a job. And then there's another really important transition going from a good STEM student to a good scientist or mathematician or engineer. A lot of times in high school, or at least my experience, was that being a good STEM student meant I always knew what the right answer was on a test. But being a good scientist means you're exploring a question where there is no answer yet. You're discovering what the answer might be. And that's a very different mindset, a very different way of operating. And doing research in this environment is a way to start making that transition. And so how do you apply? So very nitty-gritty. Well, thanks to a professor in the physics department, Mark Ilton, Harvey Mudd has a centralized portal where most summer research experiences are advertised to students. And you can see the URL here. It's the undergraduate research opportunities, so uro.hmc.edu. And tomorrow night is the faculty's last chance to post projects. And on Monday morning, students can start viewing the different projects that are available. They might be able to view them now, but they can start applying on Monday. And they'll have, I think, about 3 weeks to apply. Now, say that your student has a favorite professor and they say, oh, I really want to do research with Professor so-and-so, but they're not on the URO. Go talk to that professor. Encourage your student to have a conversation, because some faculty are not yet using the URO for whatever reason. So it never hurts to reach out and ask, hey, professor, I did not see any projects in your lab on the URO, but I'm interested in doing research with you at some point. So you can have your students ask there. And the frequently asked questions section of the URO says the same thing. So do students need to interview? This is really variable based on the professor. Some professors will read the applications and then ask students to interview. Students do not have to contact the professor. They do not have to talk to the prof before applying. Professors have different philosophies here, and increasingly, if faculty want to have an interview with the student, the faculty member will initiate it. Okay. how many students do summer research? So we have about 900 students on campus, and every summer we have about 200 students doing research with about 45 to 50 faculty participating. And I want to just lift out too that the summer of 2020, we were remote. The campus was closed. This was all virtual research. And so even during the remote pandemic years, we were able to keep the summer research program going. In fact, my lab group grew quite a bit that summer. I was planning to take 2 experimental students, and I ended up with 6 students doing computations and simulations, which was really a delight and a high point of that very, very hard time. Okay. So can your student do summer research and? Mudders are very good at and, piling on. Yes, and I want to do research and a class and a big trip and all this volunteer work. This is really going to depend. There are some labs where the student has to be there during set hours for safety reasons, for the nature of the work. So your student should talk to the professor if they have other things they want to do during the summer, and be very clear up front. This is my situation for my family, what's happening with my family, with the summer classes I want to take. And just be sure that you have a clear understanding of the expectations for summer research and the hours the student is expected to be there. Okay. I would say that it's unlikely that you could do 3 weeks of research, take 2 weeks off, and then do another 7 weeks. It's more likely you would end up with a shorter research experience, 7 or 8 weeks instead of 10, with a commensurate decrease in the pay that the student would take home. I also just will lift out a big point that Natasha made, which is the importance of self-care and everything during the summer. If a student has been really working very, very hard, they're very tired during the academic year, it might be worth just doing one thing in the summer. Do that thing well, but have time to rest and recuperate so that they start the fall invigorated and ready to go again. This is a big change in mindset for our amazing students who got to Harvey Mudd by doing all the things and then are trying to do everything at once at Harvey Mudd. So I know this is a shift compared to getting ready to be, say, admitted to college. So the take-home points I'd leave you with, summer research is a great way to learn and grow as a scientist, engineer, mathematician, researcher, and scholar. And I also just want to reassure you that every Harvey Mudd student will do research during their time at Harvey Mudd, because all of our students do a capstone project. It might be a clinic project, it might be senior thesis work, but every student has that experience guaranteed in their senior year. So if your student applies for summer research and they do not get it, try again, right? You can try again, but they will have that experience at Harvey Mudd. And then here again is the URO to apply. So that's the information I have. I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm gonna do gallery. All right. We got some pre-submitted questions that I wanted to kick us off with. And Natasha, if you could specifically talk a little bit about freshman internships after the first year specifically, and like how we go about helping freshmen be prepared for summer.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm sure this question is being asked because we know that a lot of internships are not always for first year students. Sometimes they are targeting juniors and seniors specifically. But there are still several opportunities that are open to all levels of students, or even some that are actually specifically targeted to first and second year students. So especially some of the like larger companies, I will say like usually larger tech companies that might have specifically like first year targeted opportunities. So it is just kind of about finding those on Handshake, which is again the platform that we use where students can search for jobs and internships. There are filters, so students can select to only see positions that are actually open for first year students. So that's a great way to begin that search. And then otherwise, something really great that happened this past year was a student actually put together like a spreadsheet with opportunities that were specifically for first and second year students and shared it with everyone. And we also kind of got a copy so we can share it with students in the future. But yeah, there are several opportunities that are specifically open to them or kind of open to all students that they can definitely apply to as well. Did that answer all parts of the question?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that was also pre-submitted, Natasha, was specifically about positions that require a minimum of 3.0 GPA. So do you have any advice, especially some of our first years don't have grades right now because they haven't finished their second semester with a GPA. So do you have advice in general about job positions with that kind of minimum on them?
Yes, definitely. If the student feels like they're still qualified otherwise to do the position, we usually just recommend that they apply still. Some companies may kind of more highly value the GPA and like actually have a hard cutoff, but other companies that definitely may not be the case. It may just be something that they kind of have to include as part of the application. And we never really know kind of what their leaning is from outside. So we do just generally encourage students to apply and make sure that the skills and experiences that they do have are well presented in their resume or cover letter or any application materials that they might be using. So it really is just kind of about focusing on what they do have to offer and presenting that well.
Great. Kathy, we got some research scheduling questions that have come in, and I think you covered a bit about this, so I'm going to combine two of the ones that were submitted. Someone asked for 10 weeks of research. Do you know approximately what kind of dates different labs tend to do? And then someone did ask if there's the opportunity during summer research to take for like a break for midsummer travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dates will vary a bit by the professor. Typically, faculty start right after graduation or the week after graduation, and then run through the end of July is about 10 weeks. But some faculty will start a little later. So I would encourage your student to talk to the faculty member whose lab they're interested in joining to firm that up for sure. I would say the most do start either right after graduation or the next week. And then the other question was about midsummer travel. There again, I think it's a conversation with the faculty member. Your student then would receive a prorated pay of $620 per week, and they would be missing a couple weeks of that research experience. It would not be a case where you work 5 weeks, go on vacation for 2, and then work another 5. Just because of the student then might be alone in the lab because the rest of their group had finished, that would not be a very safe or enjoyable experience.
Kathy, during the application process, is there ways like in the kind of the portal process to say these types of details, or is it usually just like an external conversation with a professor?
Usually it would be an external conversation with a professor. Yeah.
Great to know. All right, we got a long one. Natasha, I think this one's for you. So we've got a daughter who's a sophomore, and she enjoys so many different things that she's having a hard time narrowing down career choices, which I think a lot of people struggle with at MUD. And choosing can be really difficult. So she visited you guys in career services, which is great. And she had resources, was like lists of numerous careers for what she could do. But it's a little overwhelming, right? You have too many options. So is the next step, and they're asking if this is the right way to approach this, is the next step to spend more time with someone who could potentially do some assessments or get to know her personality, strengths and weaknesses, and which would help her narrow down the possibilities, or is there potentially some other way that she could help kind of focus her internship intents?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that definitely talking to other people is very important. And it is one thing to kind of like, what does a engineer do? Kind of or
Yeah.
try to find things online versus actually talking to someone that's working in that type of role and asking very specific questions to learn about what they really do and kind of comparing that to to their interests. And as far as like kind of skill and strength assessments, like the strong interest inventory or um, the RIASEC or Holland codes, these kind of common career type assessments. Um, I find that they're just not specific enough for our students. The kind of STEM careers they're mentioning are a bit more broad. So that's kind of a big reason that I don't tend to point many students toward them. Um, so yeah, I wish, or there may be like a more specific one, like specifically for STEM majors out there that I'm just not aware of, but that's kind of the reason that I don't tend to point students toward those common assessments.
Yeah, I mean, and the student's a sophomore, so my advice would always be like try one. And I think getting out there even just the one time should help her kind of start narrowing things down. It won't be perfect, obviously. You kind of have to just choose a direction and start, but you're kind of on your own for figuring it out in some ways, but I also think talking to faculty might be a really good resource because they might know more about the combined interests going towards a specific direction. So maybe her faculty advisor might be a good option, or major advisor.
Yeah, and then just something else too to add on to that. Um, I like to, especially students that are kind of undecided and open to a lot of different possibilities. I like to try at least to explain that any experiences that you might have are all kind of contributing to your portfolio of skills. It's I would say not well, it can be common, but um, careers are not like a linear pathway, and I think we kind of all know that. But just telling that to students too, I think that sometimes they have an idea of like I'm going to do step A and then step B and then step C, and I'm going to get on this one clear path. That's definitely not the case for most people. So it, and I understand though that having a lot of options too is kind of frustrating, like not having a specific direction, but um, it's kind of how it works out sometimes. So we do try to help students find ways to explore those options, and then it kind of is like they have to compare what they're learning to like what they're feeling, like what sounds good or not. So it is kind of ultimately they have to be the ones making decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry we couldn't give any more very specific advice necessarily. But I also think just because you're interested in something doesn't mean that's going to be a career, obviously. But by starting in any step forward, she might add other constraints that will start narrowing her list down, right? Either geographically or work-life balance, the things that Natasha talked about, like being the key motivators for jobs. So if that might also just help move things forward in a direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Kathy?
sometimes too, you can think, sometimes a student will have a question they're interested, like what might be a way to contribute to renewable energy in the future, or what might be a way to think about education or air quality, and then how does an engineer approach that question, or how does a chemist approach it, how does someone with a CS background approach it? And if the student has a question they're really interested in, they can think about finding ways that some of their talents and aptitudes intersect with that bigger picture question. And that can be another way to try to think about moving forward. But Natasha's exactly right. Everything they try will give them some information.
Yeah. All right. We got the question. Kathy, I think this one's for you. Is it possible to volunteer for summer research projects at MUD?
No, we tell faculty and students, no, these are not volunteer positions. They're paid positions. There are reasons for that around equity and around labor and around protections for your student as an employee.
Great. Natasha, someone asked, is there a specific list of opportunities for first-year students, or is it easiest to just make an appointment, or what should they advise their student?
Yeah, and that list specifically that I was mentioning was for kind of more tech-related opportunities specifically. So that one, yes, they can email us. I'm happy to kind of pass that on, but also definitely scheduling an appointment so we can talk more about their specific interests, especially if they're outside of tech. That wouldn't be as helpful, that list. But yes, definitely making an appointment or just reaching out to us and we can definitely share more information.
Great. And this question isn't specific, but I feel like it actually kind of applies to both of you about how soon students will find out if they are hired or accepted. So Kathy, for summer research, can you talk a little bit about the timeline when they would find out?
If they are applying through the URO, the last day for students to apply is Sunday, February 19, and after that date, faculty would start making offers to students. And Tuesday, March 7th is the last day for faculty to accept students. So they would hopefully know by spring break.
Great. And then Natasha, for you're getting an internship, do you have any idea about kind of timelines that you're seeing from companies?
Super, super variable. Yeah. So yeah, there's no really standard kind of timeline for internships and jobs and things like that. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Darn.
And yeah. And I guess maybe if I could circle back quickly to what we were talking about before, advice for the student who has lots of possibilities. Natasha talked about the alumni network, and I think doing informational interviews with alums in a bunch of different fields would be a really useful thing to do. Harvey Mudd alums love talking to current students, right? And even if your student went to her professors and said, hey, are there alums I could talk to in this area? Professors might be able to give you a list of names, career services could, and if your student has a series of short conversations with a few different people, that might be a way to learn more about the possibilities that are out there.
Great suggestion, Kathy. I'll plug the alumni Facebook group. We have an HMC alumni Facebook group, which is only alumni, and then a few staff like me and Natasha are in there to share campus opportunities, but it's strictly alumni. And so your student can go there, and regularly we see kind of students pose questions and get feedback from alumni, and your student's response could be contact me if you're in this field or have advice for me in this field. And so we also have a HMC alumni LinkedIn group, which is also only alumni, where questions can be posed, as well as that Mud Compass Natasha talked about it's a really easy way to directly connect with alumni in fields that your students interested in. There's a lot of different directions to connect with alumni. All right, someone asked a nuts and bolts question. How much does it cost to live on campus? Are they allowed cars? Are the dining halls open? I'm assuming all for summer research and or on-campus jobs over the summer.
The dining hall is typically not open during the summer. Students are housed in dorms that have kitchens. And there are several grocery stores within walking distance. There are students who have cars. And I have heard my summer research students talk about forming like little groups of students where they all could take turns cooking for each other. And it's a great way to learn some of those skills too. Living in the dorms costs about $2,000 for 10 weeks. And can students have cars on campus? I know they at least some do. So I see Erin nodding yes also.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure for summer they can have cars.
Yeah.
There is, I believe, one dining hall that stays open during the summer across the 5 Cs. So it's a bit of a walk, and I think most people just end up cooking most meals in their dorm. But technically there's a food option available, but there's no meal plan for the summer. So you would just be paying out of your pocket anyway. Great. We didn't get any more questions. So if you have any last minute questions, please put them in. We only have a couple more minutes here. Kathy, I was paying attention to your presentation and you didn't mention necessarily computer science related research, but they do
Oh,
research, correct?
yes. I'm sorry. I put that in my mind with kind of theory and
Okay.
and all of that. So yes, theory, computing, yes, absolutely. Lots of CS research. Some computer scientists are working on robots, like human robot interaction. So that is kind of the experiment category, but absolutely there's a lot of computer science research happening at Harvey Mudd. Thank you for clarifying.
Of course. And I do want to say there are also on-campus paid positions that aren't in research and that aren't internships. So those are, Natasha mentioned that Handshake has some on-campus job activities as well. But I think the key is your student needs to be paying attention to their emails, because that is where a lot of the on-campus summer options, like in our makerspace, we have summer stewards in our makerspace as a job. So just lots of options for on-campus activities as well. I think that's it. We're coming to the end of our hour. Thank you so much, Kathy and Natasha. Thank you to our audience for your questions and for attending this event. Our Family Focus continues this spring with the next event covering our clinic program on February 21st. So save the date. The invite will go out soon. I also want to encourage you all to attend our 4-class socials next weekend, February 4th and 5th. There's one for each first year, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. So this is your chance to talk to fellow HMC parents in your class year, gain insights, hear advice, or just share stories of how your year's been going. So check your email or the Family Focus website for those registration pages. I'll put the URL in the chat right now. And then, there was a last minute question. Do you know if current students are allowed to go to the CMS gym in the summer?
I would
limited hours.
Yeah, I would guess limited hours, probably yes, but I would ask their coach.
Yes.
Find their coach and ask their coach.
Yes. And finally, if you aren't receiving invitations or have any other questions, please feel free to email parents@hmc.edu. And thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.